What's good, everyone? It's Tim, also known as MTG Merlin, and I love Yuriko. She's super fun and interesting and bad. She's bad in CEDH. In casual, she's borderline broken, but at the top end of the format, she's in the fringes at best. But that doesn't mean she can't hang. In fact, earlier this year, she won her first large-scale tournament. On July 27th, 2024, Kohei Ando Mizuno, also known as KOKO, played in and won the Commander and Coffee Last Chance Qualifier for the Top Deck Championship Series. There were also 3 other Yuriko pilots at this event: Asa, placing 30th, Cerberus, placing 16th, and Harder Than Narcissus, placing 14th. We'll talk more about this tournament later, but 3 Yurikos in the top 16 is already a great thing to see. And she's recently been on the upswing, likely having something to do with the recent goodies she's been getting. Starting in Neon Dynasty, we got an instant staple in Thousand Face Shadow, a 1-mana ninja flying man that clones another attacking creature if you ninjutsu it. We also got a number of other ninjas that range from pretty good to pretty bad, but more options is always a good thing to see. New Capenna gave us Shadow of Mortality, the de facto big burn spell target for Yuriko flips. Not much was printed for us between Dominaria United and March of the Machines, but Lord of the Rings did release here, and oh boy did it release. The Lord of the Rings set warped the format on its release with 2 cards, one we don't play and one we do. The One Ring, which we don't play much, and Orcish Bowmasters, which we do. Bowmasters has changed the way the format evaluates creature decks, and while we are one of the decks negatively affected by the orcs, not playing them would leave us more open to them, so we play it. While not a whole set, the Doctor Who Universes Beyond Commander decks gave Yuriko yet another finishing option in Nanogene Conversion. 4 mana, sorcery speed to turn your board and everyone else's into non-legendary copies of Yuriko, and exponentially increasing the amount of Yuriko triggers can end a game on the spot. While not as flashy as any of our previous pickups, Murders at Carlisle Manor did give us the Surveil lands and a few more options for enablers. The Surveil lands fuel Yuriko's large delve spells, and at this point, Yuriko can play whatever enablers fit the playstyle of the pilot the best, so love to have more options. Outlaws gave us even more enabler options, but the big card we got was Satoru the Infiltrator. Drawing a card on ninjutsu, being a ninja himself with evasion, and being a great Tempt blocker makes him one of, if not the only creature that we would play on turn 2 instead of Yuriko. Great card. MH3 was a huge shot in the arm for Yuriko, as it not only had a new cycle of free to cast spells that feel almost made for Yuriko in Flare of Denial and Malice, but also 2 sets of untapped MDFC lands. This is exactly what she's been wanting, as it lets us cut down on the amount of lands and dead flips from Yuriko, and the 3 life per land to enter untapped is largely not important, as Yuriko doesn't run Adnaz or anything that cares about her life total. And finally, the most recent set, Bloom Barrow, which gave us yet another staple in Mockingbird, an on-rate clone effect with evasion, making it one of the best enablers early, and a copy of the best thing on the board late game. So with all the cards she's been getting for the last couple of years, why is Yuriko so bad? All the cards she got seemed pretty good for her. Well, she's too slow, and her cards are bad in the grand scheme of things. So Yuriko's main game plan and source of card advantage doesn't come online until turn 2, and until then, unless we find some fast mana, we're tapping out for those first 2 turns. This is the most dangerous part of playing Yuriko in CEDH. The first 2 turns are often where players are setting up for win attempts later, and with us tapping out to deploy our main game plan and card advantage, we're oftentimes just a little too slow to stop these win attempts without help from other players. And because Yuriko has such a different game plan from most other decks in the format, a lot of generically good cards aren't really playable, or at least the value of those cards isn't as high as we would like. So instead, we choose to play more synergistic cards with Yuriko, but that means we have to play less good cards overall. And this is made worse by the fact that Yuriko often can't take turns off because the deck is built around curving out to cast enablers or ninjas to keep putting pressure on the board. This is also why the deck often doesn't run a whole lot of mana rocks, as colorless mana just isn't very useful to us, and taking a turn off to cast said mana rock instead of more attackers can be the reason you're not able to close out the game. Both of these problems and the printing of more powerful commanders have pushed Yuriko into the fringes of CEDH, but that hasn't stopped the dedicated Yuriko pilots from continuing to work and innovate on the deck. So how does Yuriko go from being a fringe deck that you see occasionally to spiking a CEDH tournament? I got a chance to speak with KOKO about his win at the Last Chance qualifier, as well as how far Yuriko has come over the years.
Hello, this is KOKO, or known as Kohei. I currently play Yuriko the Tiger Shadow, and probably one of the most active Yuriko players when it comes to playing in tournaments. I recently won a gold tier tournament, which was Commander and Coffee, which was a, I believe, 73 player tournament, at least 60 plus or more, and gold tiered. And that was the first ever gold tier win for Yuriko. So finally putting us on the map.
How does Yuriko go from being arguably fringe to spiking a CDH tournament and one of the gold tier ones at that?
A lot has changed for Yuriko over the years, and I think the stars did align to a certain extent in the tournaments. As you know, Yuriko is quite variance based because due to her flips, and I think the way I'm playing, the way I'm playing, my mindset, and with the new and old cards, I was able to push out a win.
What made your list different from the stock database list? Because we know Yuriko has been on the database for basically forever, and it's been almost a staple of the format as the almost, I'd say, aggro deck of the format that just wants to keep hitting you with ninjas, flipping damage, maybe win with the Oracle, but typically trying to push that ninja game plan. So what makes your list different from what's on the database?
So something I do want to state, the database list we are no longer going off by. That list is strictly for new CEDH players. So please don't look at that list if you are not new, if you're like a veteran, or if you're trying to look at good lists, because that list is meant to be for beginners. So the card choices in there are meant for beginners. And I think I made a list of like a Yuriko stock list tempo that's TEDH. So, definitely look at that. It's in our server, and maybe, Merlin can like post it or something. Okay. That one is meant to be more of a stock list. So, take a look at it, adjust it to your playstyle, but it has cards in there that are meant for more veterans. So while the database list is meant to be friendly to beginners, so some card choices can be meant to be easier, basically, like less thinking, and like you could just play it, just not think about it. But anyway, so moving aside on that tangent, the stock list on the database list and compared to mine is we're currently off by 9 cards. It was 8 in the past. I'm trying Scheming Symmetry as, just for funsies, but Ninja of the Deep Hour was in my deck at that time. So we were off by 8 cards. And the 8 cards that are on the stock list were Dothy Voidwalker, Talion, Memnite, City of Brass, Shieldred, and then Cursed Totem, Norod, Weathered Runestone. And in my list was Doomsday, Axiom Probe, Undercity Sewers, Nanogene Conversion, surprisingly League 8, Subtlety, and Street Wraith. Now, obviously, the biggest difference here is Doomsday in my list and not running any of the stacks pieces in the database list. It was this year that a lot of people felt that we need to move off the stacks piece and just push for our win, which I was pretty hesitant, I'm not gonna lie, because Norod, Cursed Totem, Weathered Runestone, these cards absolutely hose the meta. But at the same time, it could be also draw a lot of hate from 3 players, right? 3 people don't like when Norod drop, so they will do everything and team up against you. And when the Norod gets removed and then that person gets stopped, the next person in turn order gets to win. So not saying that Norod is still bad. I still think fellow Yuriko players still do play and it's great, but a lot of people took off the stacks pieces and pushed for their wins instead, added more counter spells, removal, and Doomsday, right? I know Doomsday is pretty scary of a card to run. It's super risky, but you know, Yuriko hasn't been able to win. So if we're not going to take risks, when are we going to take it? So I think Doomsday is a double-edged sword that we need because we're Dimir. Because we can't run Breach and other cards. We have to find other cards that we can use to push. And I think Doomsday is a great card because it doesn't require a lot of commitment. All you need is the Yuriko, a couple of lands in order to tap for Doomsday, and you could just Gush and, you know, get the pile of, you know, Gush and Street Wraith, Gitaxian Probe, Lotus Petal, and Oracle. There's other piles too, obviously. You know, Doomsday is a very skill-intensive card. Maybe a Brainstorm, maybe you exiled XYZ, so you have to use other things. But I think Doomsday is a card that we need to turn the corner. I know some players don't play Doomsday and they find success without it. That's fine. But for a handful or a good decent amount of us, we just feel that we need this card.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, because I think at this point, with how much support Yuriko's been getting, whether directly or indirectly, I think the best part about her is that we have all these different builds of Yuriko now, where
Absolutely.
I personally, while I love Yuriko, I personally like to play her as a Reanimator deck. And I recognize that that may not be the most optimal, but I think for me, what I like about that is that it leans into what she's already wanting to do and playing big spells and playing big creatures, flipping them off, discarding them in hand size, keeping our hand full. And so I like that we have that option. We can have these controlling Staxy variants. We can have Tempo. We can have Turbo. We can have all these options that she allows us to do while still keeping the base Yuriko game plan more or less intact.
Right, exactly. Like, it's in the past, everyone's deck was pretty homogenized. Like, if you were off by like 3-5 cards, it was it's like, whoa, like everyone's like, your deck is wrong, you know? Like, it felt like everyone was playing basically the same list and only like 1 or 2 cards were different. Fast forward to now, people could be having 20 plus different cards. I know my list and John Kennedy, which is a great Yuriko player who plays the Control Stacks variant, I think our lists are different by like 28 or something insanely high. And, you know, I look at his list and I look at mine, but I don't fault him for that. I'm like, oh, I don't play these cards, but I understand why he plays it. In Control Stacks Yuriko, he literally plays Torpor War, which is an incredibly crushing card against Dockside and Oracle and any like OBM, at least the initial cast on the ETB. You know, I don't play that, but it makes sense in his deck because he's trying to make the game go long. His plan is turn 1 or 2 to play Stax Beast. My most plans is, you know, turn 1 play a 1/1 creature, turn 2 play Yuriko, Ninjutsu and Yuriko, turn 3 question mark, turn 4 Prophet. While John Kennedy is going, I'm gonna play Soul Ring, No Rod. Or, you know, play a dinky creature turn 1, turn 2, here's this hard casted No Rod, or Weather Runestone, or whatever have you. So, like, his list and playstyle is different, but he still finds success with it. So, you know, in the year of 2024, it's really cool to see all the different Yuriko lists and how similar they are or how different they are. Like, shoot, like, I've seen people play my list and they cut 1 card, and it's a 1 card difference. Does that make our list like completely like different? No, like it's pretty much the same. But then I see lists like, you know, other people playing 15 different cards, 20 cards, 28 cards, you know? So it's really cool to see how everyone's playing different builds. And honestly, it's finding the right play style for you. You need to make the best deck to fit your play style, in my opinion. It's not about, you know, picking like, oh, like my list, for example, like, oh, KOKO won his list, so I'm gonna play his list. No, you should look at my list, and if all 100 or, you know, 99 cards resonate with, I'm happy for you. I'm glad. But instead of being cheap, look at my list and go, does this fit my playstyle or my meta? Or, you know, like, I don't like this card, or I like this card. Look at people's lists and then cater it to your own, because you need to build the best deck for you.
Yeah. What do you think this means for Yuriko, at least in the tournament scene? Because we know now she can win. She's always been able to compete She's occasionally made it to the top 16, top 4s, but she's finally won a tournament. So what do you think this means for Yuriko going forward?
I think it was really important to show that Yuriko can win. You know, the old saying, you know, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And it's so true, right? Yuriko gets top 16, top 4s. We got a lot of top 16, top 4s this year. But, you know, it was always hard to find that win. Like, yeah, maybe Yuriko wins like a bronze tournament or silver tournament, like a 16, 30 plus tournament. It was never gold. It was so hard to find one because you couldn't really find one. I don't think there was. There isn't.
Not
but,
that I've seen.
Right, exactly. So me finally putting her on the map, I think that it showed people that it is possible. Is it going to be hard? Yeah, it's still hard. Like, I think my win doesn't just make like Yuriko suddenly like amazing and like, okay, like Yuriko can win tournaments from now on. Well, not quite. Like, yes, I showed I could win, but I still think we still have a bit of a way until we're, of course, you know, like the S tiers, which is like Sisei, you know, Nadu and Blue Farm and Roxanne and all of that. It just shows that it is possible. It's just hard.
Thank you, KOKO, for taking the time to talk with me. And if you want to explore what Yuriko can do in CEDH, check out the link below to the official Yuriko Discord. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.